this lesson, we'll read a news article together so you can improve all areas of your English. You'll expand your vocabulary, learn advanced grammar, and improve your pronunciation at the same time. And this article discusses a current event, the first meeting between Donald Trump and Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline, Carney tells Trump Canada is not for sale. President praises PM as a very good person. First, let's look at tell and compare this to say. If I wanted to change this and use say, but we have a person here, could I do that grammatically? Or would something need to be done? What do you think? If you replace tell with say, you need to add the preposition to. Carney says to Trump, Canada is not for sale. And I put this part in quotations because this is the information coming out of Carney's mouth. Now, alternatively, you could say, Carney says Canada is not for sale. So notice that different in structure. You tell someone something. So Carney tells someone, Trump, and the something is Canada is not for sale. With say, you can say something. Carney says Canada is not for sale. This is the something. Or you can say to someone something. Carney says to Trump. So that's why you need that preposition here. I see a lot of mistakes, so make sure you review this. Now the next part, president praises PM. PM is short for Prime Minister, which is the title for the Canadian representative. President praises PM as a very good person. So let's talk about the use of this verb to praise. Of course, when you praise, it means you express admiration, approval, or support. For sentence structure, you can say someone praises. So this is your verb to praise, and you need to conjugate it. So here it's in this past simple. The students praised now someone as something. So the students praised Jennifer as a great teacher. Thank you. Thank you. And that's the structure that's used here. So President Trump praises the Prime Minister as, and then something. So you need a noun, a very good person. So this is very positive for the new Prime Minister of Canada. Another very common structure is someone praises. So same thing, conjugate your verb, someone, then you use the preposition for, and you use a verb. Now, for is a preposition, so your verb needs to be an ing. The students praised Jennifer for being a great teacher. This is a very common structure. Now, you can also just praise something. So the students praised the English lesson. Wow, learning English with the news is such a great way. I love it. If you say that, you're praising the English lesson. So you can praise something directly. So if you want to show your admiration, approval, or support for this lesson and all the lessons I create, then put that's right, put that's right in the comment to show that you are praising this lesson. Put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading the article. Newly elected Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. So remember I said Prime Minister, you can just shorten it to PM like we see here. Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, of course this man here, stepped into the Lion's Den Tuesday. Okay, what do you think this means? Stepped into the Lion's Den. Well, of course, this isn't a literal meaning. He did not enter. So that would be step into is when you enter a location. So he did not enter a lion's den. So this is a figurative meaning. And of course, a lion's den is very dangerous, right? So if Mark Carney stepped into the lion's den, it means he entered a dangerous or hostile situation. So Mark Carney stepped into the lion's den Tuesday for his first face-to-face with his U.S. counterpart. Now notice here, they didn't use the noun meeting, first face-to-face meeting, because it's obvious that face-to-face represents face-to-face meeting. And of course, that represents an in-person meeting, which is the opposite of a virtual meeting. So if someone could ask you, oh, is it a Zoom interview? Which of course is a virtual interview. And then you can reply back and say, no, it's face-to-face. No, it's face-to-face. You could also say, no, it's in person. Now, you don't have to add on, no, it's an in-person interview, because the context is obvious. Now, you might be discussing something with someone virtually, but then say, oh, we should discuss this face to face. We should discuss this. And then you can also add on in person. So you can use those as well and just not use the word meeting or interview or whatever else the noun would be. For his first face-to-face with his U.S. counterpart. So of course, the counterpart to the Prime Minister of Canada is the President of the United States of America. So that's what this with his US counterpart represents. A high stakes meeting that seemed to go well, with compliments exchanged on both sides. Okay. Let's talk about high stakes. This is an adjective. It describes the meeting, and it means that there's a lot to gain or lose. So that represents high stakes. You hear this in many different contexts, especially in crime movies or police movies. There's a lot of high stakes negotiations or situations, and a lot to do with politics is considered high stakes. So a high stakes meeting that seemed to go well. First of all, to go well, you should definitely have this in your vocabulary. And notice the verb here is go. So if you wanted to use this in different conjugations, your verb go is what you conjugate. A very common question you should have in your vocabulary is, how did the meeting go? Now, instead of the meeting, it could be anything. How did the interview go? How did the party go? How did the concert go? It can be anything, social or professional. So how did the meeting go? How would you answer this in a simple way? You can say it or the meeting went well, because go is your verb. So this is in the past simple. So your answer would be in the past simple. Here are some options. It went well, which is, so okay. Good, a little bit better. Great, better than expected. So that's an interesting one. Or you can make it negative and say it didn't go well, which means it went poorly or badly. To sound worse, it went terribly. It went worse than expected. So must know question, and these are some potential answers you can use, although there are other adverbs you can use as well. Now notice here though, that seemed to go well. If something seems to go well, it means we have some evidence, but we don't know 100%. So I might say, if I went to an interview, they seemed to like me, but I don't know. They didn't say, Jennifer, I like you. It's just their body language, the conversation we had. So it's my guess, or there's some evidence, but it's not 100%. So let's review this part again. A high stakes meeting that seemed to go well with compliments exchanged on both sides. So compliments is I say something nice about you. Now, if it's exchanged on both sides, it means Donald Trump said nice things about Mark Carney and Mark Carney said nice things about Donald Trump. So that's exchanged. Now, compliments, you can use this with anything. We often use this with personal appearances. You might say, "Oh, Jennifer, I really like your hair today." Or, "Oh, Jennifer, that lipstick looks great on you." Or, "Oh, Jennifer, you did an awesome job with the presentation." So compliments is used in a wide range of both physical and skill-based as well. Notice here, compliments is a noun. Now, I know that for one because it's in the plural form and it follows a preposition. So based on the sentence structure, I know this is a noun. But the verb to compliment can also be used. So you can use the verb to compliment. Of course, you would conjugate that in the past simple. She complimented my outfit. Jennifer, I love that shirt. She complimented my outfit or my shirt in this case. Now, if you use it as a noun, the collocation, the verb is you give. She gave me a compliment. So remember, verb and noun. So let's continue. With compliments exchanged on both sides, as President Donald Trump conceded his dream of annexing Canada is likely off the table. Ooh, okay. I love this expression. Off the table. This means that something is no longer an option or no longer being considered. For example, I could say extending the contract is off the table. So maybe we met face to face to discuss extending the contract, but then you told me we don't have the funding. So it's off the table. It's no longer an option. Now, the opposite of this is true. If you change it to is on the table, it means that it is an option. It can be considered. So if we meet face to face and you say, "Hey, Jennifer, great news, extending the contract is on the table." But it doesn't mean it's guaranteed. It just means that we can discuss it more. It's an option. We can consider it. Now let's talk about this verb here, concede, and then in the past simple, conceded. Concede, conceded. This means that Donald Trump admitted, but he reluctantly admitted. Reluctantly means that he didn't really want to, but he finally admitted that annexing Canada, so annexing Canada in this context meant that the United States wanted Canada to become a part of the United States, of the 51st state, and that is no longer an option. And Donald Trump has admitted that or accepted that.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Carney's goal for this first meeting of his premiership. So remember, in Canada, Mark Carney is the new Prime Minister. So to refer to his leadership, the terminology is premiership. And this would be for other countries that have a prime minister. Now, for countries that have a president, the equivalent would be presidency. Presidency. So if this were about Trump, it would be Trump's goal for his presidency. And notice that possessive. So the possessive matches the subject because Trump is male. Of course, it's his. Carney is male, so it's His premiership was to turn the page on a fractious few months with Canada-US relations at their lowest point in decades. Let's look at to turn the page. Of course, this is another idiom because idioms don't have a literal meaning. So this is my to-do list. So if I turn the page, I have a fresh page. So it's a fresh start. So that is the meaning of this idiom. It's not literally about turning a page. It's about a fresh start or a new beginning, a new relationship between the two. Let's review fractious. This is an adjective. Notice that pronunciation. Fractious, fractious. Fractious. This isn't the most common adjective. A more common one would be tense, on a tense few months. It's not a direct synonym. Fractious means that the person, or in this case, the people, they're easily upset, easily annoyed. So the conflict is quick or easy to happen. But tense would be a more common choice. On a fractious or on a tense few months with Canada-US relations at their lowest point in decades. Of course, 1 decade is a period of 10 years. So decades, it's unknown, but it's 20 or more years. So of course, it sounds like a longer time. And notice that preposition choice, it would be in decades, in 20 years, in decades. Let's continue. Speaking to reporters at the Canadian Embassy after his half day of talks with Trump, Carney said he feels better about where things stand now than when he arrived in Washington. So notice this part here. This simply gives you more information. The sentence would be just this. Carney said he feels better. Now notice here, you can say something. If you wanted to include reporters, well, notice here, you also have speak to something. So Carney said to reporters, he feels better about. You could also say that. So notice you speak to, you say to, but Carney told reporters. So you just tell someone. So he said he feels better about where things stand now. So this where things stand now, this is the status of things. So someone might ask you, where do we stand on extending the contract? So they're asking, what is the status? What are people's opinions or stances? What are people saying? So that's a common question. Where do things stand? So let's review that question that I gave you. Where do we stand on? And then because on is a preposition, your next verb is an ing. Where do we stand on extending the contract? So you're asking, what's our current status? What's our current opinion, our belief, our plan? All of that could be represented with the word status. And then someone could reply back and say, it's still on the table. What does that mean? If it's on the table, it's still an option. It's still something that we're considering. Remember, the opposite is it's off the table. It's off the table. So another common question. So he feels better about where things stand now than when he arrived in Washington. So that comparison. Even if the US president, of course, Donald Trump, did not yet agree to dismantle the punishing tariff regime on Canadian goods. Let's talk about dismantle. In this context, it means to get rid of, and then get rid of, they state here, the tariff regime. So the tariffs that the US has imposed on Canada. So you could also say to get rid of, to eliminate. Let's continue. What he did secure from Trump, so notice here, he didn't secure a dismantling of the punishing tariff regime. So secure would mean he got it, he achieved it, he has it. But so they're making that contrast. So he didn't secure this. So they're saying what he did secure from Trump was a commitment to negotiate some sort of new Canada-US trade deal, Carney said. Let's review this again. What he did secure from Trump. Do you notice anything about what I've highlighted here? How about this did secure? Because the past simple, to write this in the past simple, you wouldn't use did secure. You would just say what he secured. So this is your verb to secure. So you would put that in the past simple, which is secured. The pronunciation is very similar because it's just a very soft D. What he secured from Trump. That's the past simple. So what is this? What he did secure. This is called the emphatic form. So it uses the auxiliary verb simply to emphasize. Let me give you an example sentence. I can say, I work today, a very basic present simple sentence. Or I could say, I do work today. Adding do and then work is now the base verb. So if it were she, it would be she does work today or she works today. So this is your verb conjugated, but here it's the base verb and you add your auxiliary verb conjugated with the subject. The only reason to do this is to emphasize it. So maybe someone says, you don't work today, do you? And then you say, no, I do work today. Or your sister doesn't work today, right? She does work today. So you're simply emphasizing the information. That's the only reason to include this word. So you need to think about your verb tense because this is in the present simple. So in the past, it would be, I worked yesterday. And then someone would ask you, you didn't work yesterday, right? Or you went to the mall yesterday. And I say, no, I did work yesterday. So again, I'm emphasizing it. And this is my auxiliary verb in the past simple. And then my verb is the base verb. So that's the emphatic form. And in this context, it's used because he didn't secure the dismantling. So they want to emphasize that he did secure. So what he did secure from Trump was a commitment to negotiate some sort of new Canada-US trade deal. This some sort of lets us know that we don't know what the details are. Carney doesn't even know what the details are because he's the one who said this. Let's continue. He also asked Trump to stop with the 51st state taunts during their private luncheon, he said. Let's talk about luncheon. Notice that pronunciation. You simply add in to the word lunch. Luncheon, luncheon. A luncheon in this context is a lunch meeting or a formal lunch. You could have a luncheon for a formal lunch party, maybe for a wedding or an anniversary, but it's a formal lunch for a meeting or party, for example, a luncheon. So during this luncheon, this formal lunch meeting, do you know what Trump said he would stop? Or what at least Carney asked him to stop? The taunts. So taunts, to taunt someone, is to tease someone or to have mocking, teasing remarks. So every time Trump said publicly, oh yeah, Canada is just part of the US, that's taunting, teasing, mocking Canada, and therefore the Prime Minister of Canada. So that's what Mark Carney asked him to stop doing. Let's continue. It was a very constructive meeting. So to describe something as constructive means that you accomplished a lot. So it's another word for productive. It was a very constructive meeting. We have a lot more work to do. I'm not trying to suggest we can have one meeting and everything's changed, but now we are engaged, very fully engaged, he said. I feel better about the relations. So I feel better about the relations between Canada and the US. So relations is another word for relationship. Trump himself said Canada-US relations are on a better trajectory. So trajectory is a path that one follows. So in this case, the path was more of a negative one. The last few months, fractious, as the article previously said, tense, as I recommended. So now we're on a better trajectory. So going towards the goal, a different path after Tuesday's talks. And here, instead of Tuesday's talks, so notice the talks belong to Tuesday. That's why we have this possessive here. You can say after the talks on Tuesday if you said it another way, but you could just say after Tuesday's talks. And instead of talks, you could say after Tuesday's face-to-face. Or you could say face-to-face talks if you wanted to include that. And this use of the word himself is also simply to emphasize. It's not required grammatically. You can say Trump said Canada-US relations are on a better trajectory. But this is positive news. So by including Trump himself, it means not Trump's aide, not Trump's assistant, Trump. So it's emphasizing that the words came out of Trump's mouth, which makes it sound more impactful. Let's continue. Speaking briefly to the press after the Canadian delegation left, the president said he was happy to see Justin Trudeau gone. Justin Trudeau was the former Prime Minister of Canada, and then gone, meaning he is no longer the prime minister because Mark Carney is the new prime minister. So he was happy to see Justin Trudeau gone. You could replace gone with leave office. You could use that as well. Saying the former prime minister, this is Justin Trudeau. So saying the former prime minister was antagonistic and fostered a bad relationship between the two countries. Antagonistic, it's an adjective. So here, to be. Now, this is in the past simple because he's no longer the prime minister. So at that time in the past was antagonistic, which means hostile, aggressive, or confrontational. Antagonistic, and fostered a bad relationship between the two countries. The verb to foster is very commonly used, especially in a more formal, professional context. It means to encourage, promote, or contribute to. It's often used with positive things, but as you can see here, you can also encourage or promote something negative. So in a positive context, you'll hear things like the teacher worked hard to foster confidence. So to encourage, promote, cause, bring about confidence in her students. In a negative context, which isn't as common with the verb foster, but it's possible. So notice it's a verb to foster, so you need to conjugate it. Here it's in the past simple. A lack of communication fostered tension. So it promoted tension. It promoted something negative. So it contributed to or caused, brought about, fostered tension in their relationship. Let's continue. While he called Trudeau, so the he is Donald Trump, and remember Trudeau was the former Prime Minister of Canada. While he called Trudeau the governor, so remember Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada. The terminology governor is used in the United States for states. And remember, Trump was saying that Canada should be the 51st state. So if that were true, Trudeau would not be a prime minister. He would be a governor. But that's not what is the current situation, right? So while he called Trudeau the governor in a show of disrespect. Because, like I said, this isn't the reality. Trump said he hasn't done that with Carney, and he may not in the future. So notice this use of he hasn't done that. This is in the present perfect, but we use the present perfect with an unfinished time reference. So if I say I haven't done my homework, it means I still can because it's an unfinished time reference. But if I say I didn't do my homework, well, then the timeline is complete. The homework was due yesterday and it's impossible for me to do the homework. So this is important because it just means until now. And he may not call him the governor in a show of disrespect. He may not in the future, but may is a modal of possibility. So it's saying, I may not call him governor, but on the other side, I may call him governor. So Trump is saying it's still possible he will call him the governor. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. Carney tells Trump Canada is not for sale. President praises PM as a very good person. Newly elected Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, stepped into the Lion's Den Tuesday for his first face-to-face with his U.S. counterpart, a high-stakes meeting that seemed to go well, with compliments exchanged on both sides as President Donald Trump conceded his dream of annexing Canada is likely off the table. Carney's goal for this first meeting of his premiership was to turn the page on a fractious few months with Canada-U.S. relations at their lowest point in decades. Speaking to reporters at the Canadian Embassy after his half-day of talks with Trump, Carney said he feels better about where things stand now than when he arrived in Washington, even if the U.S. president did not yet agree to dismantle the punishing tariff regime on Canadian goods. What he did secure from Trump was a commitment to negotiate some sort of new Canada-U.S. trade deal, Carney said. He also asked Trump to stop with the 51st state taunts during their private luncheon, he said. It was a very constructive meeting. We have a lot more work to do. I'm not trying to suggest we can have one meeting and everything's changed, but now we are engaged, very fully engaged, he said. I feel better about the relations. Trump himself said Canada-U.S. relations are on a better trajectory after Tuesday's talks. Speaking briefly to the press after the Canadian delegation left, the president said he was happy to see Justin Trudeau gone, saying the former prime minister was antagonistic and fostered a bad relationship between the two countries. While he called Trudeau the governor in a show of disrespect, Trump said he hasn't done that with Carney and he may not in the future. Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.